We appreciate everybody coming down. I know it's been a busy week for everyone. My name is Captain Kutzian. I'm with the Lincoln Police Department. Today we're here to provide some additional information regarding the investigation that's been occurring over the last couple days. With us today are Chief Teresa Ewens, Assistant Chief Jason Stilley, County Attorney Pat Condon, and Captain Ben Miller, who is in charge of our Criminal Investigations Unit. With that, I will turn it over to Chief Ewens.
Good morning. I'd like to thank all of you for coming today. The purpose of today's conference is to provide additional details to include a timeline regarding the arrest of William Wright. As we stated yesterday, our intent of today's press conference is to provide you a timeline and details of the events as we know them. This investigation continues to be evolving as we conclude interviews of approximately 3 people of interest and a dozen possible witnesses. Additionally, we have several crime scenes and continue to search for possible evidence connected to both incidents. Our investigative teams have worked tirelessly for 72 hours with little to no sleep. I want to thank them for their ongoing effort and dedication, which led to the apprehension of Mr. Wright within 17 hours of the initial police response. I will reiterate, we believe that there is not a public safety concern. The homicide and suspicious death are isolated events, and everyone involved had previous interaction prior to the incidents occurring. I will ask Assistant Chief Stilley to provide a timeline of events surrounding this ongoing unfolding investigation. We'll take questions after he presents that information.
Thank you, Chief. As you mentioned, I'm Jason Stilley, Assistant Chief in charge of Operations and Investigations for the Lincoln Police Department. We'll provide the timeline as we know them today. Again, I want to caution that as more information comes to light, the timeline and those details may change. On Wednesday, August 31st at about 2 a.m., officers were dispatched to an unresponsive male in the area of 3rd and P Streets. We arrived to find 60-year-old Ronald George deceased in a field northwest of the intersection. That victim had multiple significant injuries, suggesting he was the victim of a homicide. Multiple witnesses were interviewed immediately, and that led us to a single person of interest in this case. We initially located and interviewed that person of interest at the scene as we believed that they may have been with the victim around the time of his death. That person provided additional information that led us to another person of interest. That second person of interest is located at approximately 6 a.m. Wednesday morning and provided additional details and investigative leads that required follow-up. As the day progressed, over a dozen individuals were interviewed and a generic description of another person of interest was developed. That person of interest was believed to possibly be the last person to see Ronald George alive. As we followed up on that investigative lead, that person was ultimately determined to be William Wright. At approximately 9 p.m. Wednesday evening, Wright was contacted in the area of 1st and Q. He was detained without incident, and he was further interviewed. Now, based on the totality of the information gained from a variety of interviews, officers went to the area of Northwest 12 and West Bond and searched an area in and around a local motel in that area. At approximately 10:30, they began that search. Subsequent to that search, another person found deceased was located outside the motel early Thursday morning. At this time, the condition of that body is not conducive to an identification. So I do ask for your patience. As normal, we oftentimes do a next of kin notification. We're able to release the name of the victim, roughly 24 hours, ideally, after they're discovered. In this case, I'm going to ask for your patience because we have not yet been able to definitively identify him. While we believe the second victim is the victim of a homicide, we will not be able to definitively draw that conclusion until that determination is made by a pathologist. An autopsy was performed yesterday afternoon. However, further testing will be needed in the coming days to determine manner and cause of death. While looking into this second case, we have determined the following to have occurred. On Monday, August 29th, William Wright is located at that local motel in the area, Northwest 12 and West Bond. He is joined by another male who we believe is the person we later found deceased outside that motel. At some point on Monday, August 29th, we believe that the unidentified victim was killed roughly between the time of 2:30 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. On Tuesday, August 30th, William Wright is observed to leave the motel in the early morning hours, however, returns at around noon that same day to the motel where he remains for several hours. We believe that Wright eventually came into contact with a person of interest in this case that was interviewed early on in the stages of this investigation. That person ultimately led Wright to the area where Ronald George was found, ultimately deceased about 4 hours later. I want to stress that this investigation is still in the early stages. Our investigators have really worked tirelessly, just like the chief had mentioned, and they continue to follow up on leads. And I could not be more proud of their efforts to rapidly try to bring some closure to this case for the victims' families. There are still individuals yet to be identified that may have witnessed this event or come into contact with either Ronald George or William Wright in those days preceding Ronald George's murder. If they have information, we're asking that they come forward. They can contact us by reaching out on the non-emergency number at 402-441-6000. They can also remain anonymous if they wish to do so by contacting Crime Stoppers at 402-475-3600. And with that, we'll take any questions that you may have.
Can you kind of describe the injuries or what exactly about the person found near the motel? Why is that person unidentifiable?
Yeah, mainly because there could be more information that we have to glean. Andrew, we're kind of keeping some of the nature of those injuries close to the vest right now. We hope to be able to identify a little bit more details, but we're trying to be a little bit cautious because of the investigation and also respect the victims, the family of the victims, and how they'll take that as well. But I hope that those details will come out. It just may take a few days to do so.
Can you explain the relationship between Mr. Wright and the second homicide victim or second death?
That is a very good question, and we are still looking into that. That is one of the pieces of information that we hope that somebody out there will help us with, is how they met, when they met, and some of that interaction that preceded that murder.
You mentioned, I think, 2 additional persons of interest. Are you pursuing criminal charges, or are they being criminally investigated for their involvement in these cases?
It's always a possibility. Certainly right now, we want the information that they're providing, and so we're taking it all in. We'll make some of those decisions as we go forward, maybe in the next couple days.
The first victim died from stab wounds. Any indication injuries in this death are similar? Can you say?
Repeat.
The first victim was stabbed to death.
Yep.
Any indication that this person may have been stabbed?
Meaning similar
Similar.
to the second victim?
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into necessarily the manner and cause, because I'm going to leave that to a pathologist. And they've already done an autopsy, like I indicated, but we still have a few more investigative steps that they have to take before we can determine that.
The second victim, were they, found where they were thought to have been killed, or was their body, dumped in any way, or do you know at this time?
I would say that more than likely, and again, things can change, I do not believe that they were found in the area that they were killed. So I think there were 2 different areas. But we're looking into that.
Did you recover, I'm sorry, maybe I must have missed it, did you recover a possible murder weapon in either of the case on by Peachtree or the one by West Bond?
Yeah, so a knife was recovered at the scene of the first homicide that we investigated near Ronald George. We have recovered other weapons. It's undetermined yet if they're going to be the murder weapon of the second person found. So we're still early stages right now. Those are some of the questions that we hope to answer, but we just don't have those answers as I stand here today.
And so you don't know exactly about what time the first body, the victim may have been murdered?
The timeline for the first person, we believe, happened sometime between 2:30 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. on Monday, August 29th.
And, I guess through your interviews, have you guys been able to begin to answer the question why this happened?
We sometimes it defies logic sometimes on why some of these things happen. Obviously, we always want to know. That's why I think any information that other people out there that may hear this story and had interaction with either the victim, Ronald George, or our suspect that's in custody at this time, William Wright, maybe they can shed some light on that. But what kicked off this murder, the series of murders, I don't know. But we aim to find that out.
Are there any other missing people that you're looking for that may be involved or maybe in danger or may have been hurt by this?
I could have Captain Miller speak to that. We're always investigating cases of missing persons. At this time, we do not have any information that would lead William Wright to another missing person.
This might be, I guess, better for Pat, but you've been in the prosecutor's office here a long time. I guess, can you remember the last time that there were, it's not officially, but perhaps two bodies kind of tied to one suspect or one case?
I believe Brandon Crago. It was a double homicide out in the county that I believe he was on a series of robberies and things of that nature here in Lincoln, and then the investigation led to the county where he killed two individuals out in the county. So that's the last one I can think of.
Do you know when you may upgrade charges or if you're planning on upgrading charges?
Well, we'll continue to work with the police department and reviewing all the reports that come in, and then we'll make those decisions when that is available to us, when that information is available to us.
And I mean, does it still appear that it's a second-degree murder charge for the Peach Street murder?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, it's a good question, Andrew, and we will, again, keep going through the reports from the Team 3 detectives and make our decision. I mean, there's a lot of reports, a lot of things they're doing. They've been working nonstop, as the chief said, for 72 hours. There's a lot of things that we need to go through, and then once we get through those, we'll make that determination.
If I can just add, the case is ongoing. I mean, we still have a lot of information to gather. It's not just the witnesses or the people of interest that we need to go through the reports. It's also additional. And so this is evolving. Something like this is complex. And so we need to understand, and I hope you understand, that we're continuing with this investigation, and we're going to get to a point where we actually can make these decisions. So it is evolving.
How cooperative has it been with witnesses or other people coming forward and providing maybe security video, that nature, helping out your investigation? Has been pretty cooperative with your investigators?
I'm going to let the captain answer that question.
Yeah, so the public's been very helpful in this. Every instance that we've identified that surveillance video might exist, they've been over backwards really to help us get that. There's just really so much of it. We're looking at an event that took place, or series of events that took place over several days. So combing through all that digital evidence is very time consuming. So, but yeah, public's been great with that piece of it.
And Captain Stilley, or Chief Stilley, I'm sorry, Assistant Chief Stilley, with the, who rented out the motel room?
We believe possibly the person that was found deceased, but we don't know that yet exactly. So the motel has cooperated with us, as Captain Miller's indicated. Several other businesses in the area, both the first murder that was discovered, then also this particular event. So we do appreciate that help, and if anybody does have information, I'd like them to come forward. I would like to say before I offer the last word to the chief that I am very, very impressed and thankful for the leadership of Captain Miller with the investigative team, all of the hard work by our CSIs, our crime scene investigators, our investigative unit that's out there and doing the interviews. They put together a lot of information in a very short time period to lead to an arrest. And so I just want to reinforce with the community that we have people that are out there working tirelessly to make sure that our community is safe. And I really appreciate that. Chief.
I have one question on the timeline real quick before. So was that unidentified person killed before Ronald George?
Yes.
Beforehand?
Yep.
Okay.
And to recap, again, certainly this is a tricky series of events. I know it's sort of convoluted to keep track of. We believe that Ronald George was killed probably sometime between 10 p.m. and when he was found at 2 a.m. However, it would have been the Monday, the 29th, the day before, we believe that second victim that was located was actually the first person killed between roughly 2:30 p.m. and 8:30 p.m.
And all three of them at some point in time had met with each other?
So, again, we know somehow the second victim around the motel had met up with our suspect. I don't know how, but we're looking to figure that out. Again, as noted in the timeline, the suspect, William Wright, was brought to Ronald George several hours or a few hours before Ronald George was ultimately found deceased. So I don't know if they knew each other before that, or if that was sort of an impromptu meeting. But again, that'll be something that we look to find
I
out.
was wondering whether or not all three of them had made contact with each other, or if Ronald George, if he knew the other unidentified suspect.
Yeah, certainly in any of these cases that we're looking to solve, we want to know what that relationship is and what led to the violence. And so that is on the forefront of our investigators' minds. We just don't have all those answers as I stand here today. Chief.
So as you can tell, it's complicated. We're going to continue moving forward. We're going to do our best to keep you informed, because it's important that the public understands the steps that are being taken and where this investigation is going. So, please understand we're doing the best that we can. Identifying having the identity for the suspicious death is absolutely important for us. So please be patient in us doing that and speaking to the families in this case. Again, it's all about the information we get from the public. And so once again, if you have any information, please call the non-emergency number at 402-441-6000, or the Crime Stoppers if you want to be anonymous, 402-475-3600. And one of the questions that came up about the interaction prior, anyone that knows Mr. Wright or had seen Mr. Wright prior to Monday, please call us, because we do want to establish, a clear timeline of events. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.